Hello and welcome to State of the Project Meros, and this is the March edition. I am your host, Cryptosi, and I am joined by as I often describe him, the enigmatic man himself, Kayaba. Kayaba, how are you, sir?
I am doing great. Thanks for asking, Cryptosi.
Okay, right. So we have got um, a whole great big bunch of stuff to get through this month. So, I'm going to do the quick introductory spiel. This is State of the Project. We talk about Meros, we talk about the code base, we talk about what's going to happen next, we talk about what's happened before. Sometimes we give Kyber a little bit of time to get on his soapbox and trash other projects. Well, no, actually, we don't do that. But yeah, generally, we just look at the project and go into a bit of technical detail about what's happening and why. Um,
We generally save the project trashing for the ends of the voice calls in the Meros Discord.
yes.
Like I'll say everyone's done, time to filter out, and then someone pops in and say, "But what about this project?"
And then Kayaba says, right.
And I'm off hours at that point. I am off hours. I am a free person.
Oh, right. So if you do want to participate in any of those calls, we do have them. The most recent one was about the emission curve. I guess the translation would be the monetary policy. That's up on YouTube. But we do have calls like that where anybody can get involved with the project and help out. So this is literally it's a retro crypto project. It's not one of those where the team makes all the decisions. Kaiba's tried to, from the very inception, can we say, of uh, of Meros, he's tried to keep it as open as possible, and that's the reason why we've been doing these podcasts for over 2 years now. So, first things first, Kayaba, recent announcements. There was a push in the Meros Discord. I also saw something on Twitter. I also saw something on Instagram. I may have posted something myself on Instagram about Meros requiring a Python developer. Why does Meros require a Python developer? And uh, how much are you going to pay them?
So the reason I want to hire a Python developer is I've said this before. One of the things I really value is testing for accuracy and validity, or validity and accuracy in that order, because when we write something like Meros, we need to make sure that we're not allowing double spends, we're not allowing anyone to just claim coins out of thin air and so on. And the way that you properly verify that stuff is you write a test. You write a test that says, hey, can I get in here and just spend this guy's coin? Or, hey, can I get here and spend these spent coins and so on and so on? And writing these tests that are expected to fail is how you ensure that if anyone tries to do this on the mainnet, that it actually will fail. And beyond that, we have a very strictly defined protocol. It's something I'm very proud of, where every single network message and action and how to handle it is defined in a set of docs on our GitHub. That said, we have a lot of tests already in the framework to handle them, yet there's still always more. There's still always more failure cases. There's some accuracy cases we have yet to handle. Recently, I've been working on a new RPC, and that has plenty of tests to match it. So the reason I'm looking for a Python developer is to help share the lot of the load that I'm going through right now, because all the time I'm spending writing tests is time that I can't be working on Meros itself.
Yes, you have said throughout numerous other questions how important you feel that testing is to Meros. These tests, could you be? I'm not suggesting that you should be, but could you be a cowboy and just launch Meros tomorrow without doing these tests and hope things work out?
I mean, even with the amount of tests we already have, I could launch Meros as is. I could just do human testing, like, oh yeah, this looks fine. If I tell it to create a send, it does create a send validly. If I maliciously give it an invalid send, who knows what will happen? But no, even with the tests already we've covered a lot of angles, and I could launch Meros as is. That said, it truly would be destructive because it just takes a single bug or a single not working feature, and the project itself kind of falls into itself. I'm not saying we couldn't recover, but I'm saying worst case scenario, not only do we have that tarnish, but we have to wait another couple of weeks for a new release that everyone must upgrade to. And that really would kill a lot of our momentum. But no, there are projects which do that, and they do that. So it is
Let's.
technically possible to do it ourselves, but I really rather not.
I just want to congratulate you on not naming names there. I know you really wanted to, so well done for not doing that. This Python developer that you're looking for, how's that search going? And also, if somebody's watching this and feels that they can contribute, what and where what should they do and where should they do it?
Oh, it's kind of unfortunate now that you've said that, but I actually have found a candidate who I think I'm likely to go through with. I
Ah,
don't want to publicly call them out just because in a week from now, I don't want them to feel pressured that I
yeah.
named them in the podcast. Don't want to be spreading that fake news about them. But I did actually find a candidate, and they are someone I'm considering going with. I said I would love to have them working on Meros, and we're really just talking it through. But
Okay.
we're recording this on a weekend, so it may be a day or two.
Okay. Okay. I'll keep my eyes peeled for that announcement, if it does become an announcement, or just watch out for someone else becoming a contributor in the GitHub, which I guess
Sure.
where I first see them.
Yeah, no, as part of listing the posting for a Python developer, it wasn't too complex of his job. It was really, running the test. They're not expected to work on the core protocol or any of the cryptography. But as part of that, a couple of people went forward, and one of them said that they weren't actually interested in the position because they didn't feel they competent enough or that they could devote the proper amount of time. And I said, I completely understand that. Thanks for being honest. But if there's anything I can ever help you with, let me know. And they said they would definitely still be interested in working on Meros, just not as a paid position. So I'm excited to see how that might go. Of
Ah,
course, it's a volunteer thing, and I have no expectations of them. And just as I didn't name the earlier developer because I don't want to make them feel bad if they end up not working out a week from now, I'm not going to name this guy. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Even if he did a single commit, that would be great, in my opinion.
yeah.
Just always great to have people volunteer in whatever capacity, whether it be writing code, hosting podcasts, or just talking in the server.
Yeah, it's really good that someone's got that kind of honest attitude as well. So yeah, well done
Mhm.
that person, whoever they are. The
Yep.
next question, which I know you're really really excited about talking about,
I don't feel
s-
like I will be.
slash S. NFT discussions. So there was a little bit of chatter shortly after the release of the last podcast about NFTs. Now it's no secret I've been badgering you in quite a annoying fashion. I'd say like an annoying younger brother, except I'm not younger than you, but it's just how it's working out. Um, is it possible for Meros to have NFTs? The reason why I'm asking is because it was always also asked by Strontium, another community member, and Mr. SX12, who is the person who actually made the background that we're seeing
Mhm.
on this podcast. So, yeah, if is it possible for Meros to be a platform for other projects to launch their own NFTs on, or other people to launch their own NFTs on?
So,
And how do you feel about this potential?
so it is possible to have NFTs on the basis that we have data transactions. You can store up to 255 bytes of data, which is more than enough to say, hey, I'm creating a token. The ID is just the transaction itself. You don't really define an ID. Like just to theorize about what the protocol would look like. And then if say it's a piece of art, you can say, here's a link to all the info about it. So you can definitely store, just a flag that says, hey, this data transaction is intended to be this. Let's say it's protocol ID 000000001. The reason there are so many zeros is just amount of possibilities. But no, you can definitely define protocols on data transactions like that. And then as part of that, say, hey, I'm creating a NFT that resolves to this data and give an IPFS link that has like JSON info or whatever. So no, it's definitely possible to create them. You just need people to agree on a consistent protocol. And beyond agreeing on that, you need wallet software that supports it. You need something to go through the data and say, hey, that's creating an NFT or that's transferring an NFT or so on and so on.
These NFTs,
Uh,
would these NFTs benefit from the instant and feeless nature of Meros?
Um, yes, they would, as the data transactions are also instant and feeless, but there are some limitations to such a protocol. As in, if you do work with purely datas, you can't actually handle Meros. So a frequent use of Ethereum is a variety of escrow functionality. What the escrow is being used for, it's generally something more complex. But say you have an NFT and you want to trade it for 1 Ether. You lock actually up the 1 Ether, and while it's locked, you transfer the NFT. So both the NFT and the Ether are temporarily in a smart contract. But with Meros, you have Meros and you have NFTs, but you can't like lock them up in a script. Where even if users agreed on a scripting format, the Meros protocol wouldn't acknowledge such a script, and it wouldn't assign any Meros value to it. So there are limitations, but you can still create and transfer NFTs if you define a common protocol and software for it.
Yeah. So that just sounds like opportunities to me. So it can be done. It's just that it's not as easy as I would have hoped it to be. Yeah. How do you feel about this potential? Does it excite you or?
I wanted to name someone, and I'm gonna sound like an idiot if I try because I completely forget who I wanted to name. It's not. Is it Robespierre? I was gonna make a joke about how I'm like one of the French dictators, and how this is my closest friend surrounding me to tell me to go into the dark night. I don't like NFTs. I appreciate them. I think they have value. I understand how the Meros technology lines up. It's not something I want to push on Meros, mainly because I want to prioritize Meros as a currency, not as an NFT platform. And there have been arguments about how becoming an NFT platform, even if that's what we're known as because it's the killer app for Meros, that would still encourage use of Meros. And the protocol does have it where if NFT transfers stop actual Meros currency transfers going through, the data filter can be raised explicitly to make sure Meros maintains its currency functionality. They have 2 separate spam filters for this exact reason. So that said, it's still not something I'm a fan of, but I feel like I'm outnumbered by the people close to me. And they're going to push me into the pool here. That's how I feel. I feel I'm going to be forced to join them, or I shall be facing the guillotine at noon.
Yes, I feel like that's true. So let me just try and break that down to layman's terms. Are you saying that Meros, the actual Meros protocol, has something in it that if NFTs became something that clogged the network in the same way that CryptoKitties did, it wouldn't cause the actual transaction of the currency to slow down. So the currency would always comes first. So if it was Ethereum, when CryptoKitties clogged the network, they would only clog it for the other NFTs, and anyone that wanted to use it or send Ethereum wouldn't have to pay sky high gas fees.
Well, of course, it's not just other NFTs; it's every single form of data. But yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We have a spam filter just to prevent spam in general. And when you raise that spam filter, you decrease the rate at which transactions come in because you need to put more effort into producing them. And the thing about this is we can make it more difficult to create data transactions, which may be NFT transfers or whatever, depending on how they're used. Or they can just be standard tokens, or they can be someone publishing a hash of their will, or it could be, I don't know. There's a lot of options. It can be someone storing a photo. That's a really bad idea. Please don't do that. But it can be a lot of things. And as we increase the difficulty, the rate at which they come in is going to slow down as people put more effort in. And when it slows down enough, that will allow standard Meros transactions to continue going through.
Right. Okay. I guess that's am I right in saying that could be seen as a defense mechanism as well, in case somebody, for malicious reasons, decided to try to flood the network with data?
Is the primary on 2 separate spam filters, is to ensure that currency can be prioritized over data.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. All right. I'm going to move on to another question. Also, if you have any questions that you want to ask on this podcast or video cast, however you're watching it, please join the Meros Discord. Link is in the description below. And you can either ask in general and I'll copy it over to the State of the Project channel, or you can go to the State of the Project channel and ask in there, and we'll try to ask the questions that the community have asked the previous month. What I also think I'm going to do, depending on how it works this episode, is start off with the lighter questions that aren't so code specific, and then move into the code stuff in the second half of the podcast, so that way the people who are a bit intimidated by the coding stuff can kind of just watch the first part and then carry on with their regular lives or feel less intimidated. Let's just see how it goes. So the next question, I believe, came from Mr. SX12. I didn't actually write who asked this question, but I thought it was a pretty good question. Was they suggested that you had a Meros development crowd fund, as it seems at the moment all of these things that we are having to pay for, the royal we being you, having to pay for, is coming out of your own pocket, and some of the actual members of the community may feel like they would want to contribute. Have you considered having a Meros development crowd fund? If not, why not? Why do you think that'd be a bad idea?
This was asked by a newer member to our community, Bazira. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce their name.
Yes, that's right.
And they started out by asking how much are we paying devs to work on Meros? And you kind of asked about that earlier. How much am I paying a Python dev? And the answer is, I'm not paying one currently. In the job listing, that didn't have a price attached. It is a paid position, don't get me wrong. But I'm not. There's no fixed price. It's just a question of if the developer is quality, if so, like what price are we talking about? What price are they looking for? What price can I afford? There's a lot of considerations. It's not some fixed price. And when it does come out, I would rather just keep that between us, just for both of our privacy's sake.
Yeah.
Kind of ironic because I'm building a non-private cryptocurrency. We should talk about privacy sometime. We've talked about it before, but we should talk about it again.
I was going to actually have it in this podcast, but I feel like there's some other things that I wanted to discuss, like transactions per second and other things. But maybe next month we should talk about privacy or privacy.
Yeah. Probably. So as part of that, I explained, we don't pay we don't have developers on payroll. We are discussing hiring one for that. But it's not an hourly position. It is, you do work, you get paid. It's not you work per hour and you get paid per hour. It's more of a, I don't want to say salaried, because there's a lot of terminologies out here, and there's a lot of legal distinctions, because we're not offering benefits. This is not through a corporation. It is me as an individual hiring someone else on an intermittent, it's a whole thing. I don't want to get into the
is there a way that we can help?
Right. As part of that, I said, if we look to historical developers, Javier Romero, he was a great developer that I really appreciated having. He dropped out for personal reasons, and I do miss him a good bit. Don't get me wrong, I still text him occasionally, but not as much as I should, to be honest. I should reach out. But he really revamped our tests and really helped get that going. He set up Docker images. He helps with the CI. He really brought us over to existing tooling instead of our own my own hacky work. And he's someone I really appreciate the contributions of. And he did all of it as a volunteer. I'll put out contracts on Gitcoin, and those have been paid positions. And I can't say how much per hourly because it was do this task, get paid. And one of them, they go by Riku. They did some work, and then they came back actually, and they're like, hey, would you also be interested in this? I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. And they just did the work. They didn't ask for a contract. They just volunteered to do it. And we've had a history of contracts, but we also have a history of volunteers. So this is a paid position. I've never had anyone on the payroll before. You could argue that I'm on my own payroll, but that's just me subtracting money and adding it immediately back. Like, there's no meaningful distinction here. If I'm saying I'm paying myself for my work.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because we're not a corporation. We don't have corporate funding. We didn't do an ICO. We didn't do a token sale. We didn't take donations that give you the token whenever you we didn't take donations and say, hey, donate and get the coin. There was a project a few years ago known as, I want to say 5 years ago now, known as, it might have been 3 or 4. It was called Stone. It was a fork of Nano. That's just all we have to do is add ZK snarks by turning transactions into an exponential equation. It was trying to describe ZK snarks as a simple thing when it's not simple at all, and it was a total scam. And one of the things they did is take donations and then say donators will get some of the coins. And the reason they did this is twofold. One, they didn't want to call it an ICO, I guess, with all the legalities associated. And two, they wanted to say, oh, yeah, we can walk away at any time and have no obligation to you guys.
Sounds like a good deal.
A couple other projects have since used donations And I've actually been reached out to before. People have asked me, hey, are you guys accepting donations? Oh, next message. And if so, how many coins would I get? Really frustrates me, to be honest. I don't like donations being used in that sense, and I don't like being asked if I'm willing to sell them coins before launch. But no, we don't even have a pre-mine. Like, there's so many reasons, though. But the reason we did this was, one, decentralization, and two, I'm not going to take money for something I haven't built. When I started Meros almost 3 years ago now, I wasn't going to say, hey, give me money, and 3 years from now, you may or may not have a currency.
But
like, it's just,
I'm
you
wondering,
need to have something before it can be warranted. And now Meros is at the point where we're large enough. Like, yes, we've established ourselves. If we took money, it wouldn't be a scam. We would obviously be here for this long. And getting money just to make $10,000 off donations, however much we get, I don't know if it would be a few hundred. I don't know if it would be a few thousand. Just to walk away with it, that would be a horrible decision. Like, no, Meros is not a scam. If someone did send me money, I wasn't going to run away. But it's the fact that Meros has gone on this long and is this close to launch that says we don't need to take donations. So if we don't need to take donations, then why should I?
So here's my thoughts on it. Is although it's not probably not critical that we have donations, I think the question was more, what if people wanted to donate? What if people wanted to help? So perhaps not in a system where even if you had to hold the funds, but maybe if there was a system where you could put up a job and say, we can get this job done if we have this much funding. It's kind of similar to how the Meros Development Fund is going to work, but without the actual contracts and without the actual everything being on chain or off chain or whatever, without having it that way. Would that be possible? Would that be something that would help?
I wouldn't say that's not the way the MDF is going to work. First of all,
Okay.
I do want to make that clarification, but conversation for a different day. But when it comes to funding contracts, anyone can take any open GitHub issue and assign a bounty on Gitcoin. Anyone. The thing is that we don't have a lot of issues that cleanly go into something like Gitcoin. Like, I've looked over our open issues and thought, can I Gitcoin this? Can I Gitcoin that? And a lot of them are too complicated. Unless you post very simple or clear jobs on Gitcoin, you tend to not get responses.
Okay.
And with Meros, it's hard to line up with Gitcoin. The only thing I can think of putting on Gitcoin would be a variety of Python work, but I'm just hiring a Python developer for that. Because we have a laundry list of tasks. It's not effective to go task by task. So if someone out there wanted to say, hey, I'll hire a developer to work on Meros, and they just said, hey, here's someone I'm paying to be a Python developer, and that Python developer submits good code, I wouldn't say no to that. I would accept good code. So technically, yes, if you wanted to contribute towards Meros, you could hire someone to submit code, and as long as it's good code, I'll accept it. Or you could build a block explorer or hire someone to build a block explorer. You can definitely do your own things with Meros, and if it's related to Meros itself, so, I'm not talking about accepting block explorer code into the Meros repo, but if you submit me code for the Meros repo, yeah, I'll add it if it's good code. So if you really did want to go out of your way, you could.
Yeah.
But right now, we don't have a task funding system that's easily accessible, and I am hesitant to add one due to how funds would flow.
Okay.
As in, I don't think there is a valid way to add one due to how funds would flow.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we will discuss
Go
ahead.
There is one thing that would require a substantial amount of money to get done. It's if we wanted to get an audit done before launch. Because that is something I originally said must happen. When I was a naive 1 year into Meros, or maybe even 6 months, I don't remember when I kind of dropped it. And I didn't consider how an audit would cost tens of thousands of dollars, which is, I can't afford that.
And generally, I'm not a fan of audits because they cost a lot of money and they're only valid for one version of the software. And even then, when things go wrong, it's kind of like, oh, well.
Yeah, I have moved into the extensive testing situation where we just extensively... Wait, well, there's that one Ethereum project that got 3 audits and an exploit chain and then another and then another. No, there definitely are really bad audit companies out there. It is still something I would appreciate, though. It is still something I would appreciate. But I have moved personally to just extensively testing because that is something that doesn't cost me tens of thousands of dollars to do. And it isn't for a single version. We can run these tests against any version and update them as needed.
Yeah.
But, I mean, an audit would be nice, but I also don't... I'm not sure if I could even raise that much of donations, and someone would have to take the funds temporarily, and I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
And this is not an opportunity for someone random in the Meros Discord to go, I'll be that person, send me the money. I promise to get an audit. I promise to get an audit. No, don't do that. I'm saying I don't trust anyone. You're a trustworthy person. I would trust you.
Yeah, I don't want to be
To
that
at
person
least
either.
try.
Yeah, no,
But
thank
do
you.
I trust you not to lose your private key?
Do you trust me not to go out and buy champagne? I wouldn't trust me. So let's not do that. Okay, let's move
Yeah,
on.
donations just really don't work, even though the project's now established enough where it clearly isn't a scam, and there's no moral dubiousness to accepting donations early on because we're not early on.
Yeah, and also I guess the difference in the type of work you get from a freelancer for a task and someone who you have regularly, who actually gets to know the code base and gets to work with the other programmers, is it's a massive difference.
They do
As
the work much faster, and they actually consider a larger effects.
Yes,
They don't say, okay, what about the code cleanliness? They won't realize, wait, this system hooks into this system, creating this edge case when both of them overlap. They're just like, okay, this test technically passes because I did the minimal amount of checks.
yes, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
recent thing I've been testing is the RPC.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you want to get to this later. I won't spoil too much.
No,
But one functionality, and I'll be quick about this, is called batch requests, where you can submit multiple requests at the same time.
mhm,
And as I was writing the NIM code for that, for handling multiple requests sent at the same time, I realized something in that I passed the authorization status, like whether or not you're authorized to send funds and so on, like whether or not you're just able to view a block or if you're actually able to send money out of this node. I passed that to each individual request, which means that if your thing has a mix of authorized and non-authorized requests, it should be fine without issue. But we have to test that that status is maintained for each. Like, there's just edge cases with how we handle this stuff, especially when you get to more complex examples. And the only reason I realized that is because I wrote the code. I mean, you could also read the code and see, oh, this is the various checks it's doing. This is the various places it can fail. But it does require a level of familiarity, and you actually have to care to think about the
yeah,
larger effects and then care to mention them or
yeah,
care to act on them.
yeah. Yeah, well, if I put my project manager hat on, you notice that often with certain freelancers, they're just there to get paid as quickly as
Minimal work.
possible. Yeah, and then
Exactly.
get out. So I understand that's where it does become very difficult. Okay, so moving
Oh,
on.
one other thing I wanted to note. We
Yeah,
didn't say this about the Python developer, but I am looking at a part-time position. I personally can't afford a full-time Python developer. And I'm also not sure if there is that much Python code, since I would still keep at it. Like, maybe if they did all of the tests, but not just. Anyways, I did want to note it's a part-time position that's being looked at,
yeah.
because I
Uh,
don't think we covered that.
no, we didn't. But what I will do is put a link to the announcement so people, because it was quite a
Mhm.
detailed announcement. It wasn't as
Yeah, I tried my
concise as
best.
well. Yeah, it was quite a detailed announcement. Okay, so moving on. The next question, which as I was writing this question down, I had a smile on my face because I knew you would appreciate it. Well, this is just my understanding, and I know it's probably not as accurate as you would like, but it's about the overall cryptosphere. So this is the last question before we actually go into the GitHub for Meros. So this is kind of about the overall cryptosphere, and there are a lot of projects now which are claiming high TPS, high transactions per second stats. And what I'm beginning to notice now is that the compromise seems to be transactions per second on one hand, and then centralization on the other hand, and it's literally a balancing act. If you want more of one, you're going to have, or I should say, decentralization. You're going to have less of the other. Would you agree with that generalization? And do you think it's how important do you think it is that that block creation or new blocks are not closed or given a higher barrier to entry?
So there is a triangle here with scalability, decentralization, and I think the third one is security, but I kind of feel bad I can't actually remember the third point on the triangle
Hmm.
because this is referenced in, a lot of sharding work. But the thing is, it's referenced in like the basics of learning about sharding. It's
Okay.
meant to establish a problem. It's the scalability trilemma, if I recall correctly, where you can be scalable and secure, or you can be decentralized and secure, or you can be so on and so on.
Yeah.
But you can't have all three. That's the claim made. And I do think it is decentralization, scalable, and secure. I do think those are the three. Because if you just accept any transaction that comes at you, you can do a lot of transactions. But yeah, so a lot of projects, I truly do believe sharding is amazing, and I would love to get Meros sharded one day. It's just not something I have the resources to do myself or the resources to cause, which is why Meros is launching without sharding. But a lot of projects have said, let's get rid of the decentralization aspect. Let's use our own servers or have a few community members run servers, and let's beef them out. Like, oh my gosh, I would love one of those machines.
Yeah.
One project, which it's going to be pretty obvious as I talk about it, but I won't explicitly name it, was like, oh, you need four of the top NVIDIA graphics cards that are over $1,000 each. You need an M.2 SSD, an SSD, and then 4 hard drives. You need a Threadripper.
Yeah.
Like, just the most expensive machine you could buy, $10,000 to $20,000 at least, with the premise that every single one is a mini data center. Because yes, they have a very high transaction count because you need to spend $20,000 to run a node.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. That's not accessible. That's PayPal saying, hey, if you want to run some of our servers, here's how. And that's people running PayPal servers. Like, no, that doesn't mean I can run my own node. That doesn't mean I can easily verify this stuff. Like, yes, light wallets exist. I have no idea the status of their light wallets. To be clear, I'm not referring to light wallets as in you download an app to your phone and it just does stuff by communicating with a centralized server. I do mean a proper light wallet like Electrum or a Bitcoin SPV wallet, something which verifies enough of the chain state where it's not, and it's still decentralized. Ideally, it connects to the regular nodes. It just doesn't track all the data. So anyways, my point there is I do assume that they have light nodes. I have no idea if they're centralized or decentralized, like SPV decentralized. But their resources are so infeasible. I really don't think it's a thing of the people. And something that's really important to me is that coins aren't limited to corporations and very few people who can afford such a machine, but it's able to anyone who runs a shop, anyone who is at home and just wants to manage their finances and know that they have the ultimate security. That's something that's really important to me. And sharding does enable that because you can just get the relevant shard. But with something like this, no, it's just completely eliminating the people in the sake of TPS. And I understand that view from a corporate perspective, but that goes against every single reason I'm in cryptocurrency.
So, do you feel with Meros' development currently, if we do take the triangle, that you're focusing on security and decentralization, and then when scalability does become a problem, which will probably be in 12 months, let's say 12 months from now, then you will probably opt for, and this is not, I don't want to tie you into this because I know it's a long way away. You'll probably opt for sharding or something along those lines to give you the scalability as well.
So there's actually a few things to consider here, I have to say. One of the things about Meros, it's not optimized at all. I have written a large amount of code. If some of that code was written to be written, not exactly to be the industry leader in speed, just because I'm trying to get this, I'm trying to get this ready. I'm trying to get this comprehensive. And I think right now on the test nets, I think we did hit the tens of TPS. Don't get me wrong. We're not going to be stalling along at 2 TPS on day one. But we did have limitations. And personally, I've said this before. As long as we beat Bitcoins, I understand with Lightning and so on, this changes. I think even SegWit doubles it. But as long as we beat Bitcoin's 8 TPS on day one, which is a horribly disappointing number and horrible for marketing, but I'm sticking to it, I would be happy. Yeah. And the reason for that is because that shows that, because we don't have hard limits here. We're not, technically there is one, but it's ridiculous. It would be gigabytes of data per second, if I recall correctly. It's completely infeasible with modern hardware. But my point is that if we do that, that would be great because it's saying we're at least better than Bitcoin and we're not threaded. One of the things computers can do is they can run 2 things at once, Cryptosi, or 3 things, or 4 things, or
Hmm.
5 things, depending on
Hmm.
how many cores and threads you have.
Yes, I remember you taught me this a while ago.
Um, so I think my computer in front of me, it has 4 cores, 8 threads. There's generally twice as many threads as there are cores. So that means it can do 8 things at once. Great. Except Meros only ever uses 1 thread. Technically, it runs the GUI on a second thread. Technically, it uses 2. But for actually doing stuff, it practically only uses 1. So it's not use 8 threads, go 8 times as fast. But if we did use all 8 threads in the laptop in front of me, yeah, we could definitely see a speed up of 4x, 6x if we're lucky, depending on how it's organized and how well it's done. Um, and then because it's a single thread, if there's a single expensive operation like a hash, like we're doing a proof of work hash, those aren't too expensive. Don't get me wrong; like they're still within the realm of feasibility, but they do take a fraction of a second. That halts everything else until that's done. So even though we might not want to run another proof of work hash in that instant, we can't check the network status. We can't update the database. We can't do anything else while we're maxing out that CPU aspect. And that leaves our IO and that leaves our hard drive completely unused. But if we got 3 threads going there, we could keep doing that stuff. So just by adding threads, we are talking a 4 to 6x optimization, assuming that modern computers have 8 threads, which is a bit high if you consider legacy hardware, but modern Ryzen's really are targeting that 6 to 8 threads as a minimum.
Mhm.
So it's not completely infeasible if you're considering modern hardware. With VPSs, then no, we might be talking 2 to 4 threads, which is a different story. But I'm just saying, like even just threading, there's a massive multiplier available. And then there actually are optimizations where it's not about using more threads, it's about using the threads we have more efficiently and organizing data so it just flows better. There's a lot of work to be done. So if we could get 8 TPS at launch, I really feel that would set the benchmark to get 30 within a couple of months.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. And I actually really do want to give props to Nano for this. Nano still isn't charted, which is I think with their amount of time and resources, I think they should be doing work on that. They are currently not doing work on it as far as I know, which I don't agree with, but I don't mind the fact that they're currently not charted. I'm just commenting from a research perspective. I wish they were doing more. But I have to give it props because right now it does hit over 100 transactions per second. I think their confirmed, keyword being confirmed, per second is 250 or so. But the thing is that a nano transaction is 2 different pieces of data, a send and a receive. So because of that, an actual transaction is half of that at 125 TPS.
Right. Yeah.
And that's amazing. But if we look to a few years ago, it was still in the tens of TPS. I think it was roughly 60 2 years ago. So it really shows how code can be optimized, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say we can be as successful as Nano. Nano is a lot of smart people, and I'm not trying to say just because Nano can do it, oh, we're better, we must be able to do it. But I am trying to cite there is the ability to optimize.
Yeah.
So I'm not really concerned about day one TPS numbers. And when we're going for that large thousands, tens of thousands number, I really think it's to look at charting, not looking at buying 4 NVIDIA Titan cards and just saying, screw it, and throwing $100,000 at a machine or however much.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very interesting answer. Thank you very much. So I guess that concludes the crowd participation element, and now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of the GitHub. I'm really uncomfortable here. Behind me. Excuse me. Oh, that's better. Sorry, I was really quite uncomfortable. Right. So
Sorry to hear it.
yeah, I know, and I was sitting there thinking I really don't want to fix this, but I need to. Right. So the next question is we're going to go into the GitHub. The links for all of these comments all of these questions are in the description, so you can go and check out the GitHub yourself. I say this every month, but I really suggest you do it, even if you're not a coder. Kayaba thinks that GitHub is just for coders. Kayaba's wrong. Everybody can join this club. Everybody can get in there. It's
I
free
think
to.
people should be there to file issues. I think people should be able to comment on issues if they're like, hey, here's my use case. But no, I don't think the average person should be reading code.
No, but
I think blog updates are best served to show what's going on. The competent blog
no, but
updates.
no, I would have to disagree here, right? Because I generally don't read the code because I won't understand it, but
Yeah.
I can read the descriptions and I can read the conversations which I had between the developers, and it does give you a massive insight into what's happening in a particular project. So I would
That's why
say,
I'm citing the issues and not the actual code. Because yes, I
yeah,
do document my code in the commits. I try to use commit titles. I try to use descriptions. You've commented
exactly.
on them before.
Yeah,
But I do
exactly.
think the summary form is best for the average person, such as this podcast. It is a very quality podcast.
Yes, this is a great podcast. Amazingly handsome host as well. So, the question is the new RPC, and it's I think it came in
9
as
out
a
of 10 cryptocurrencies disagree with that statement.
and and
No 1 out of 10 is Cryptosi coin.
Cryptosi Coin's going to do amazing things in 2021. Watch this space. Okay, so there was a huge amount of work put into this new RPC. I think it came through as issue number 279. Although I don't know if issue is the right word. I guess when you describe the RPC. Now, off air, as we have our general discussions during the week or during the month, the last month, I've seen you toil through this. Commit, and I know we could probably devote an entire episode just to this
Mm-hmm.
one actual area. But we're not going to do that, Kayaba. We're not going to do that. So as concisely as you can,
Curses,
please.
Cryptosi. Curses. I'll get you next time. You
You
and
would
your
have,
meddling kids.
yeah, you would have gotten away for it if not for the pesky kids. So, what is the RPC? Let's just start from the very basics. What is the RPC? Why is it so important that you've literally you've sidelined everything else to do this? And why are you making these? I'm going to call them changes. Why are you making these changes?
So the RPC is how we say, like an exchange would say, hey, this person just issued a withdrawal, send these coins, or an exchange, to go back to this example, would say, hey, we just got a deposit, It's how they would check in on it. It's how other apps and programs talk to a Meros node to get the info they need and execute the actions they want. So a miner would say, hey, who am I mining for? And it would be like, oh, here's a merit holder. You're mining for person zero, go person zero. And the miner's like, yay, person zero. And then it goes and mines. So as that's what a miner would do, when it does find a matching block, it actually has to submit that block. So it's like, hey, Meros, I mined a block. Here you go. And Meros is like, great, that's a block. And it adds it. So the RPC is how these programs talk. And the reason it's important to work on it now is because when we launch Meros, we need people to write block explorers for it. We need exchanges to be able to work with it. And that means having an RPC that isn't going to change a month later, or an RPC that isn't really, really bad. The main issue with it is our RPC was directly over the network. You would connect to it, and you would just send it JSON. But when you send JSON, which is it's a format for data, generally you do it in a HTTP request, like you're loading a web page. Like when you go to log in, you might do a JSON request with your login info. And generally, when you talk to an RPC, you would also use an HTTP request. But we're at the time, and I stand by the technical superiority of this decision, but at the time I just said, no, just send the JSON object directly. Don't have any wrapping info like HTTP that says, what the object is. Just send the object directly and I'll respond. The problem with that is because there isn't any, it's annoying to work with because you have to write your own code to read back the object, because you have to look for the start and end of a JSON object. Something which is very easy to do, I maintain. But something you have to do, and that intricacy was annoying for a lot of people, and it was decided to be better to work in a more seamless manner by moving to HTTP, which basically made us a web server. And that has a lot of complexities and limitations I very much disagree with. And yet here I am, because I'm here in the name of working with others. Other technology sucks. Screw other technology. I miss my TCP. But beyond moving from TCP, the direct networking, to HTTP, which says, hey, here's the info about the object, here's how long it is, here's how it's a common protocol a lot of people have implemented so they can use it to read data back. Mm-hmm. Beyond doing that, we're also updating it. We had a lot of RPC commands that weren't actually implemented. They were just left to be implemented. So we're finally implementing those, and we're also reworking it to just be better overall, easier to work with, clearer on what's being done, and so on.
all this work makes Meros somewhat easier for exchanges to integrate and for people outside of the I don't want to say core team, but people outside of people familiar with the code base to work with Meros makes it a little bit less of an exotic cryptocurrency and a little bit more easy to work with. Would you agree?
Um, okay, so my internet has been pretty bad recently. I'm sure I've cut out a bit during this call, and you just cut out as you were answering that question. What was the final part of it?
Yeah, you see
I did
this.
hear you talking about it being exotic and
This
not.
is what happens when you live in a third world country called the United States, Kaiba, and and you end up with no internet. So what I was really saying was that this, just to break it down, I guess, or to reiterate it for maybe the people who don't quite see why this
Mm-hmm.
is so important, is that this will make it a lot easier for exchanges to integrate Meros. It makes it
Yes.
less of an exotic cryptocurrency and more of something. Okay, well, it's got an RPC. We know how RPCs work, etc., etc. It makes it
I
easy
mean,
to work with.
an RPC is effectively a requirement. If not, you would have to build your own node or edit an existing one for your purposes. But having a quality RPC is what makes sure it's accessible and makes sure exchanges, payment processors, block explorers, other people, developers who just want to do cool stuff like NFTs, they can work with it and so on.
With the RPC that you've made and you've made it yourself, is there a benefit over possibly adapting an RPC that was already made? So, um, I'm not sure how similar Meros is to Nano, but I know that
So,
the two are things. So, is it better to make your own RPC or to use or adapt Nano's RPC?
Nano wouldn't work for a few reasons. In fact, it would be easier to adopt Bitcoins than Nano.
Okay.
But for Meros, we have actually, it'd be best to adopt a hybrid, but that's creating a new one.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin is actually closer. Uh, so one of the things we did is instead of requiring a read loop over HTTP or read loop over direct network connection, which is known as TCP, we instead or in this case is TCP, we use HTTP, which means anyone who has familiar with web servers and talking to them can connect to our RPC. So that's one thing we do to make it more accessible, and the main reason we're doing this large edit to the RPC. Another thing we use is there actually is a specification called Json Rpc, which is how to write an RPC that works with JSON in defining a common format. So one of the things we do is we follow the JSON RPC 2.0 specification,
Right.
so that it further increases our accessibility. But then we talk about the specific actions in their arguments. And in the end, there's just nothing close to Meros. Like, sure, Bitcoin has similarities, Nano has similarities, but Meros is really its own thing. I actually have theorized about writing a Bitcoin front, which pretends to be a Bitcoin blockchain and works from there. Like, it pretends to be a Bitcoin RPC, so any Bitcoin tooling would work with it. And it's actually a really fascinating question, but it's something that should be its own thing and not the core Meros RPC, because
Okay.
trying to use someone else's, which was meant for a different platform with different requirements, it really does not benefit Meros overall.
Okay.
Um, though there is this one specification called Rosetta, which is kind of intended to be a generic, RPC. It defines a few commands. It's supposed to work with a variety of platforms, and I think Coinbase is one of the companies pushing it.
Okay.
It's called Rosetta, and it also has requirements on running a node. Like running a node, it shouldn't keep all of the blockchain history. It should be allowed so it only keeps the last like X amount of blocks. And that means that people running nodes for it, they don't have to keep as much data, which makes it more accessible, so on and so on. It's like a list of requirements for running a node and interacting with it, and that also has been something I've looked into.
Interesting. Really interesting. Thank you for that. I was worried that was going to be a bad question, but it is as complex as I thought it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there is a common standard. It's just not what I'm prioritizing. Going to Bitcoin would be for a different platform and not optimal. We really do need our own.
Yeah.
But we are matching standards to make sure it's accessible, even though it is custom.
Yeah. Because what effectively, I guess, what I was kind of getting at without getting at it was, um, were you just flexing? I'm going to make my own RPC because I can,
Well,
kind of thing, and then being
well, we
so
have to have our
exotic.
own implementation. There is like a NIM library We have Meros and NIM, of course.
Yeah.
Use one for Json Rpc, but it doesn't have all the functionality we wanted. And then I'm working with my own HTTP code because there isn't NIM HTTP code we can currently use, unfortunately.
Okay.
So there's a twofold aspect there.
Yeah. Right. Next one. Moving on. This is issue number 288. Thresholds for verifications, checkpoints, and rewards. I really like this one because I can't get the link up now, but from memory, you described what the.
Cryptosi, do you live in a third world country without internet?
No, my internet is fantastic at the moment. I'm not going to shout out the company because I don't want to advertise them because their rates went up and I'm not happy about that. But I get good speeds. So
And yet
basically,
here you are, unable to load a page.
no, I can load it. I can load. Okay, all right. If it's a challenge, I'm going to load the page. All right.
All
Okay.
right.
Bear with me. Let me just go here.
Oh, I loaded it minutes ago. Like the second you said it, I pulled it up because I just have a amazing internet. In fact, we're so first world, we're zeroth.
Oh dear. Okay, right. So, number 288. What I liked about this was the description. I enjoy reading the descriptions because if you're one of those people who kind of types like you talk, so I can hear your voice as I'm reading it. And sometimes even in your descriptions, we talked about this last month actually. In your description, sometimes you're shouting, sometimes you're not, sometimes you're laughing. Even in the text that comes through. So what it said is that verifying a transaction requires 81% of merit. A checkpoint requires 51% of merit. Earning rewards for a transaction. It gets 51% of merit. And all three of these values should be 67% threshold. How?
I think that was a very concise summary. I think you covered it there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And now what's the question, right? So how important is this to the to Meros working out, and what kind of can I say attack vectors? Maybe I'm jumping the gun there.
They are.
Yeah, what type of attack vectors does this open Meros up to, or not?
So, with voting on a transaction, the concern is someone's going to be an asshole and they're going to vote for two competing transactions. Yeah. So if the threshold was 51% and you got a perfect split, and you personally had 2% of merit, that means 49% of merit would pick a side, and you would have 2%, which is feasible to get, extremely feasible. And then if you vote on both transactions, half of the group, like half of every node, would side with one and half with the other until they realize you were malicious. And it's not actually that because there's more rules to it, because I write good code. If Meros detects someone's trying to do a double spend, as in two transactions exist, it actually disables instant verification, and it actually waits at least 6. It might actually be 12 right now. It waits multiple blocks before deciding which one was confirmed or not. But ignoring that aspect, the point is that if it was just 51%, it would be somewhat feasible to have a double spend on the network for a fraction of a second before some part of it was detected. So that's the reason it's a higher threshold of 81%. That said, when we talk about checkpoints, if a checkpoint isn't issued, a checkpoint being a group of 5 blocks, 6 blocks, I think 5, then the blockchain will stop. And transactions can still be issued, still be voted on, still be confirmed, but the blockchain shouldn't stop. It shouldn't stop. That's a problem. So the reason it uses a lower threshold is because 51% is still majority, and it's important to keep it moving. And then 51% is still majority. So as long as a transaction gets that many votes, we give rewards for it. The reason we don't give rewards for partial votes, like if only one person votes on it, is because then one person is incentivized to create a bunch of transactions, vote it on themselves, and then not actually send them to the network, but to still include them in blocks. So because they're still trying to include their votes in blocks so they can get rewards for them, it's just a stupid attack vector that doesn't help the network, hence why you need the majority of people to vote to earn money or earn rewards. But at the same time, we're giving rewards based off 51%, yet verification happens at 81%. So there is a group of transactions which will give rewards for, yet they won't actually benefit the live network. Because if you ask the live network, they'll be like, no, that's not at 81%. But if you ask rewards, that's like, oh yeah, that caught majority. Pay those people out. Um, so really, those should both be the same number. And then we have this one other threshold, and really that should also be a number. One number that's flaunted is the two-thirds threshold because of its roll-in Byzantine fault tolerance, which is 66.6666 so on 7%, or abbreviated 67%. So I really just want to move all of those thresholds over to 67%.
This is a interesting. You've labelled this interestingly, which it kind of was the main reason why I clicked it. Actually, why I looked into it was that it's a protocol and it's also an
Mhm.
optimization. Generally, when I've seen protocol issues, I've looked at them and I've been like, "Oh gosh, this protocol is very important."
Yeah, they're generally more critical, I think.
Right. So it got me to thinking when you first started on Meros, I know that you wrote the protocol documents and you took a long time to
I
write.
didn't write those until like a year and a half in.
Right, okay. Right, so you wrote the protocol documents, and then there was a period of time where the protocol documents and the protocol actual implementation may not have matched. Are we at a situation now where the protocol documents and the actual implementation are identical, or is there a
So,
variation between the two?
so right now the protocol documents are very comprehensive to the point they discuss unimplemented parts of Meros. So Meros as a node doesn't implement all of the protocol, but what it does implement matches the protocol almost exactly because I have updated the protocol docs. They haven't been a static document. They have been updated as beneficial or as needed in the case of some of these issues. So if you go to docs and I check the protocol, I last updated these just a couple of months ago when I fixed issue 274, which was again labeled optimization and protocol.
So, in
But if you
in
also look at the bottom of every protocol doc, it will actually have at the bottom a list of violations, which is differences between Meros and the protocol. And that can be
uh,
unimplemented functionality or it can be an actual difference that needs to be resolved.
okay,
So transactions, no, that doesn't actually have any differences. That's actually done properly. Neither does consensus. I have worked on Meros for a while. It does most of the stuff. I
okay.
have written out a protocol. I have implemented most of it. Um, oh, for BLS signatures, we use a BLS signature. I'll say tag. I'll just leave it as tag.
Yep, yep.
Version 00 because we have yet to launch. The protocol technically says version 01. So because of
Is that
that, yes,
is
technically our BLS is non-compliant with the protocol.
yeah, okay. That's
But
terrible.
if we go
That's
to Merit, we also have unimplemented features. Meros doesn't wait blocks to create mints. Meros doesn't have checkpoints implemented, so on, so on.
so what I was really wondering was in the documentation, which I didn't look
Mm-hmm.
through, would you have
Yep.
written that it was 67%, it should be 67% in the documentation? Would you have gone into that sort of detail? Or would you have
The protocol
realized
documents are complete. They do specifically say rewards are only issued when you have this much percentage
right,
behind it, and it does say 50, or it says a majority. Um,
right,
and I think it actually defines that as or sum divided by 2 plus 1,
right,
which is a yeah. So it does actually define that majority with the formula,
yeah.
and that formula would need to be updated.
Right. Okay. That's what I was getting to. Okay. So now you've made the change. You've realised you need to make the change. Then you go back to the documents. You change the documents to say, okay, this is how it should be implemented because we've realised we need to do X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
Okay. Right. I'm going to jump back onto my next question. Oh, which is actually I just asked you as a follow-on question by accident. Um, GitHub issue number 287. I remember when you first done these sketches, I remember how excited you were. I think we actually had a voice call and you were saying that you've just found these things that are the most amazing things in the world ever. They're called sketches. I still don't understand them, even though you've explained them to me about 8 times. You've got an issue
Oh,
here.
I have written an implementation for them, and I still don't understand them. I
Good,
know how
good,
I know how to
good.
use them, not how they work.
That's
I know
good.
how to use them, not how
That's
they
good.
work. But I'm also the author of the only Python implementation in existence.
That's good because I was really, really worried. How comes I still don't understand this? Okay, good. Right, I'm glad you don't
I
understand it.
understand how to use them, and I would
Yeah,
hope you understand how they're used as well. but no one understands how they work internally. No one.
Sketch's 8-byte reduction via Blake 2B is inefficient.
Oh my gosh, when you read it. It's just obviously such a technical statement.
um,
Can
and
I just take over?
there's like a real long thing here, and to be honest, to be fair to me, as soon as it says sketch at the beginning, I'm like, okay, well, this is going to go right over my head. But I know.
Can I just step in?
Go ahead.
No. Okay. So it's a whole thing. No, it's a whole thing. When we enter data into a sketch, which is an optimization, it means that if you already have data, you can know you already have it. Cryptosi, you have transactions A, B, and C. I have transactions B and C. You want to tell me, hey, you're missing transaction A, yet I don't know what I have, or you don't know what I have, and I don't know what you have. So we both create sketches of what we have, and that will say, hey, this guy's missing X, this guy's missing Y.
Mm-hmm.
It just clearly communicates such info. It's an optimization, so we don't have to send all that data all over again.
All over again, right? Okay.
So when we enter data into a sketch, generally it's at least sorry, doing the math in my head, 37 bytes.
Okay.
A verification with a group of verifications with a single verifier is 37 bytes, and it's +2 for every single verifier, every other one. So when we include it in a sketch, though, we don't include that many bytes. We only include an 8-byte format of it, because when you send it over the network, that means that it's 1/5 the size.
Right.
And to do that, we need to generate a unique hash for it. And the hashes we generate, it's also more efficient because we do have to work with it as numbers, and the numbers on computers are generally 8 bytes. It's a whole thing. Anyways, so we have to turn this roughly 40-byte piece of data into an 8-byte piece of data. And the way we do that is we actually run the Blake 2B hashing algorithm, which takes in one piece of data and generates another, and then we just grab the first 8 bytes of it, which is a valid way to do such an operation. That said, it means every time we run this, we're doing a full Blake 2B hash, which is a bit expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too expensive. Hash algorithms are made to be quick, but it is notably expensive. It can be notable when run at this scale. Mm-hmm. Especially because when it's part of block validation, and we want to be able to know if a block is correct or not within a fraction of a second. We don't want to spend too long on a block that isn't correct, because that's an attack vector. Mm-hmm. So I was looking, can we speed this up? Instead of using Blake 2B, can we use something faster? And I did actually find something called XX hash 64, which specifically generates an 8-byte value that we can use in the sketch. That said, XX hash, it's non-cryptographic, which means its inputs are not, what it generates is not guaranteed to be secure. If you enter two maliciously crafted pieces of data, you can either A, cause them to hit each other, or B, cause them, theoretically, when you have a non-cryptographic hash, you can get a piece of data that will always give the same result no matter how you tweak it. You can get a pattern in there that will forever set it to a result, and then get a different piece of data that also has that pattern. So we do use something called a salt. Before we take our 40 bytes of data and pass it into a Blake 2B to generate an 8-byte value to actually use in the sketch, we slightly modify it with what's known as a salt. So that way, even if someone does try to create in two pieces of data that conflict, because 8 bytes is small enough that's feasible, even if someone does try to be an ass, this salt will change it enough where it generates a different value. And with a cryptographic hash, that is effectively guaranteed. With a non-cryptographic hash, even if you have a salt, it is not guaranteed, because you can still preserve the patterns. One of my friends recommended something known as CRC, and that would absolutely not work. It can be used to generate a checksum. A checksum is a small but succinct way to say this is the correct data. So Cryptosi, I might take your name and I might say, oh, Cryptosi has a value of 3. And now if someone tries to say, hey, Cryptosi's name is actually Merosi, as in Meros, I can run my checksum algorithm, and it's not going to be 3, it's going to be 5. And I'll be like, wait, nope, I'm looking for a 3, that's a 5, that's not his name. But the thing is that I can also take Kayaba, and that can also generate a 5 or a 3. You have to get algorithms that generate distinct results. So XX hash is not a cryptographic hash, and it's not guaranteed to be free of such manipulation. And I actually studied it for an attack vector, and it looks like it could theoretically work, but it would require proving that even though it's not a cryptographic hash, it's just in the end you really need a cryptographic hash, which means I would look. It's a really annoying problem. I would want to replace Blade 2B with something cheaper, but right now the options I looked at, they are not competent enough. So really, it's something to resolve after mainnet, because yes, I would love to get this optimization going, but as of right now, it's not feasible to get going,
So
as it requires a lot of research into a cheaper option.
that was a really good explanation because now I understand this problem. I feel like
Thank you.
I probably couldn't help solve it, but I definitely understand it now. So I guess effectively what you're going to have to do is go and do some some hash shopping. Could we call it hash shopping? Is that a slightly illegal
No,
term?
I mean,
Does that sound
that
too
would
bad?
work.
Yeah,
Yes, that
okay.
would work.
Okay, well, let's go for hash shopping. So you're going to have to look around and find something which is cryptographic, but also cheap enough to
Mm-hmm.
help the situation that we're in. Okay, this is very interesting. You also say, I believe you say at some point, right? Okay, so I actually did have a following question before for this. Now you say at the bottom of your description, you say you'd like to tackle it at some point, yet due to this being an optimization, sketches not being consensus critical, and the amount of work needed to verify non-cryptographically secure hashes, which describe,
I mean,
judging by your,
it's arguably taking a non-cryptographically secure hash and proving that it is cryptographically secure, which won't happen.
yeah,
So really, we can't really look at non-cryptographic hashes, despite those being the fast ones, which is unfortunate because those are the fast ones.
yeah,
Like,
but
those are the ones we want.
But didn't we speak about this balance between secure and speed? And I guess this is another one of the trade-offs. You
Mm-hmm.
could easily say, okay, well, let's just take the non-cryptographic ones. If it happens, it happens. But we've got 7 million
Yep.
transactions per second, etc., etc. So my follow-on question was, could this be something that someone else, or you could outsource to someone else to do that research for you? Um, Maybe as some sort of a bounty to say, okay, who can find a tool that we could use or that Meros could use to solve this inefficiency and present it. And if you present the tool that is actually used, then you get the bounty in the end. I guess it doesn't solve you having to do the work because you're still going to have to check to see if it fits. But
Yeah.
could it be something that could be outsourced?
I mean, I've already asked my friends for suggestions and already gotten a lot, so I feel like I have a good understanding of hash algorithms out there. I also just, know of hash algorithms in general. At one point, I considered RipeMD, which is an older hash algorithm which really shouldn't be used for anything secure, but it may have worked here. But I decided I didn't want RipeMD available in my code base like that because it really shouldn't be used nowadays.
Yeah,
But technically, it could work for this, and I believe it is faster than Blake 2B. One of my friends also suggested modifying Blake 2B because Blake 2B internally, it has an iterations counter that you're not supposed to edit, but you can edit. And lowering that would lower the amount of time it takes, but still be secure enough. There were a lot of such discussions, but really, I'm looking for a more academic commentary,
yeah,
unless I do settle for something that's already been proven as a cryptographic hash, which is one that's guaranteed to not be manipulable to such a degree. Because in reality, I'm looking for a non-cryptographic hash, but when you add in an 8-byte salt in some matter, it is cryptographic. Like the data itself, the data itself isn't cryptographic, but when salted, it is. I guess that's kind of what I'm looking for. It's a whole thing.
yeah,
It's really more of an academic question in nature,
yeah.
and I don't think I'm going to get anyone from the needed academia to respond to a $50 bounty on Gitcoin.
Well,
Hit me up. If you have a PhD, you're looking for $50, you take Gitcoin, hit me up.
I tell you what, I'm going to on record, I'm going to put 10% on top of that bounty, so it's now $55.
$55.
$55.
Yes.
Okay, let's make it rain. Right. Last question. Well, second to last, penultimate question, because I like to finish off with a when mainnet, but we'll go for the second to last question. And it is the license change. There has been a license change.
Yes.
It was literally just before we started to record. And Could you explain that we spoke briefly about licenses last month, I believe. Could you explain the license change, why you've done it, and what you think it brings to Meros, what you think it improves?
So it's still an MIT license. It wasn't necessarily the license itself that changed. It was the copyright specified,
Yeah,
which is changing the license text as a whole, of course. Um, so it's still an MIT license, but now with the copyright change, it reads instead of copyright 2018 to 2021, Luke Parker, it reads copyright 2018 to 2021, Meros contributors. Which means that if you contribute something to Meros, yes, you're licensing it under the MIT license, which is a standing license, but at the same time, you're not signing over your copyright to me, Luke Parker, who can do whatever with it, including sell it, I guess. No, but you are maintaining that copyright, which enables a level of control, and it further guarantees that Meros won't have its license change. As the sole copyright holder, I could license it however I want. Tomorrow I could go, let's go GPL. But now, thanks to this, I only have the legal permission to license it as MIT, so I have to maintain that license. There are technicalities, sub-licensing and all that, but in reality, this is creating a more decentralized ecosystem and one I have less control over.
yeah. So that's what I wanted to. That's what I wanted to comment actually. I wanted to say, but you said it. This is effectively it's a commitment to decentralization, and even more of a stronger commitment to decentralization by you
Yep.
handing over even the ability to change this at a later date. Now you're
Mm-hmm.
locked in.
Yep.
Ah,
And I am a big fan of the MIT license for a few reasons, so I'm more than happy to lock in as that. And we have had previous contributors to Meros, and I have reached out to them to make sure it's okay to switch off of Luke Parker, just because it shouldn't be legally needed because I am Luke Parker, but it's still a good heads up
yeah,
and politing courtesy, and it does cover my bases legally, anyways.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay. Final question. I know you love this one. Um, when next testnet and when mainnet?
The next testnet will be the last one, and I'm not entirely sure when it's going to be. And the mainnet will be 3 to 4 weeks after the testnet if all goes well.
What other things do you feel you need to complete before you can start the next testnet? What other things are outstanding?
With the next testnet, that's going to be everything.
Right.
Everything.
Okay.
That is going to be like
Okay.
this is the mainnet, except I'm not launching the mainnet without a bunch of humans trying to break it first.
Right. Okay. Okay. So effectively, what we're saying is the final issues that we can see on GitHub that are critical would need to be solved. The protocol ones would need to be solved. There's not actually
Those
that many of.
protocol violations need to
Yes,
be solved.
violations need to be
Yep.
solved, and
But that
effectively,
also means it will be the first. This testnet will include the instance of the Meros Development Fund, so we also get to test that part out.
oh, excellent.
And the GUI should be ready by then, so that means people
Yes,
get to.
yes, because we did ask about this, and I did ask how would you get around the time situation with it only being a short test net, and we did discuss that. I think it was the month
Oh,
before
even
last.
there even be binaries to download. You can send it to your grandma and be like, "Hey, grandma, try this out."
I think my grandma has been bugging me to try out this Meros. Actually, last time I spoke to her, she did say, "Cryptosi, where is Meros? I've been waiting for this." Okay, thank you very much for your time, Kayaba. I believe we've gotten this all wrapped up in well under the 2 hour threshold that we have. We're just
I
literally
thought it was
just
3 hours now.
we're only just over 1 hour, so we've gotten wrapped up a lot quicker than I thought
Well,
we would.
obviously, I need to start ranting about coins.
No, let's not do that. We'll save that for the calls because otherwise people won't want to get on the calls. So we'll
I
save that.
always appreciate getting on these podcasts with you, Cryptosi. You're always a
No,
great host.
thank you very much. It's been a really good one. I particularly enjoyed the discussion about Blake 2B. Actually,
Mhm.
I really like that. So thank you for that. Thank you for your
Yep.
transparency as ever. Thank you for your tireless work for Meros. Thank you
Thank you.
for thank you for donating your time to keep everyone up to date every month with what's actually happening and letting us know how we can help. If you've gotten this far, congratulations. I like to make this little speech at the end. Please make sure you like and subscribe and share this amongst your friends because this is a cryptocurrency starting at the ground floor. There is no sneaky pre sale where a bunch of Silicon Valley people get it for peanuts, and then you come in later and line their pockets. This is one of those things that you can really get involved in at the beginning. Like I said before, we had the monetary call or the emission curve call recently, and there will be other calls like that. So if you have skills and you're not maybe not a developer, maybe you're an economist, as we had an economist was very helpful.
Mhm.
I forget his name now.
The person acting as an economist, I don't believe he has a degree, but he might. Was
I've
Rock'em Sock'em Jesus.
That's right. I don't think he has a degree, but I think he's still an economist. I don't think you have a degree,
I know
but
he
you're
definitely works in the financial sector.
right. Exactly. That's good enough for me. I was happy with his contributions anyway.
Mhm.
So
Oh
so
yeah, no,
yeah,
he definitely contributed in a lot of great ways.
there we go. So that's just a sign to say how open the project is. So if you are interested and you have made it this far, you obviously are interested. So just come in and make yourself at home. Pull up a chair, as they say. And yeah, so Kayaba, thank you very much. Hopefully, I will see you again for the April edition. 2021 is flying away. By that point, maybe we'll have the final testnet underway. Maybe we won't. I guess who knows? We've got to get through this. We have to get through this list of issues before we can consider that. Like I say, we like I'm doing any coding.
Well, a few of them are open and just untested, which is kind of why I want to get a Python developer in here. So that
Okay,
should help out.
okay. So a few of them are probably finished, but you just want to make sure that they're finished, right? Okay.
Yep.
And yeah, I guess that's it. I will see you next month. Thank you very much. Unless there's anything else you wanted to add before we left.
No, that's it. But thank you again, Cryptosi.
Yes, you've been amazing. Thank you, Kaiba, and goodbye.